My name's Ryan. I'm 29, work in marketing, live alone, and until a few months ago, I still bent over backward trying to be the good son. You know the one, always shows up, always pays, always forgives. The dependable disappointment, the quiet wallet. And honestly, I thought maybe that was enough to earn a seat at the table. Turns out, it wasn't even enough to earn a plate. It started with a message from my mom 2 weeks ago. Family dinner on the 15th. Dress nice, smiley face, just like that. No details. No mention of why we were getting together. No hint that it wasn't just some regular takeout and TV kind of night like they usually did. I figured it might be someone's birthday or a mini reunion, but whatever. After years of being half included, I was just happy to be invited to anything. I responded with a simple sure, looking forward to it, and marked it on my calendar without thinking too hard. The night before, I asked if I could bring anything. No reply. The next morning, I texted again, just confirming the time and place. Still nothing. Finally, around 2 p.m., my sister Emma texted, "Don't stress, just be there at 7. Dress nice." So I did. Suit jacket, slacks, fresh shave, basically the most effort I'd put into a family event since my cousin's wedding 4 years ago. I showed up 15 minutes early to this fancy downtown restaurant, one of those places with dim lighting, tiny water glasses, and waiters who speak in gentle whispers. I walked in, gave the reservation name, Green Party, table for 6, and they led me to a large round table set for 6 people. For a second, I smiled. Maybe this time would be different. Then the hostess frowned. "Actually, sorry, there seems to be a change. The party is over here." She led me across the room, toward a cramped corner next to the kitchen doors. There was a small 2-seater table, with a laminated takeout menu from their bar attached. I blinked. "I think there's a mistake. I'm with the Green Party. 6 people." She tilted her head. "That's what I was told, sir. Your family's over there." She gestured back to the main table, where I now spotted my mom, dad, Emma, my older brother Scott, and his wife, already laughing and sipping wine. For a second, I froze. My first instinct was to assume it was just a mix-up, but then Emma turned, saw me, and smirked. "Oh hey, Ryan," she called over. "We figured you'd probably prefer something simple, so we asked them to give you the takeout menu." Scott leaned back in his chair, his arm lazily thrown around the back of his wife's. "Yeah, didn't think you'd be into the whole real dinner thing." My mother just sipped her drink and said nothing. My stomach dropped. I looked at my dad, hoping maybe someone would say something normal, maybe crack a joke or call it a misunderstanding. He didn't even look at me. Instead, he turned to the waiter and said, "We'll start with the oysters and truffle flatbread, and keep the drinks coming." I stood there like a fool, still holding the little black folder with the reservation confirmation email in my phone. I'd offered to help plan this dinner. I'd helped pay for Scott's wedding. I was the one who covered Emma's car insurance for a year after she lost her job. I've picked up groceries, paid medical deductibles, and quietly slipped cash to my parents when the mortgage got tight. And now I was being given a laminated menu like I was their awkward plus one. I didn't sit. I didn't even walk over to my assigned sad little table. I just stood there for a beat, swallowing a mix of embarrassment and a kind of simmering clarity. You know that cold click in your brain when you realize, oh, this isn't a joke. They meant this. That moment snapped something in me. I turned to the waiter who'd brought me over and said, in a calm voice, "Actually, I made the reservation. I'll be handling the table." His eyes widened slightly. "Oh, understood, sir." I walked past the main table, ignoring Emma's raised eyebrow and Scott's smug little chuckle, and approached the host's stand. "Can you update the billing info on the green reservation?" I asked. She nodded, polite but curious. "Certainly, sir. Who should we?" "Put it on the main parties tab. I'll be leaving soon, so I just want to make sure everything's in order." She hesitated for a second. I pulled up the confirmation email, the one I'd made 2 weeks ago, long before my parents even mentioned dinner, and showed her my name on it. That seemed to seal it. Then I quietly walked outside, sat on a bench just around the corner, and waited. I checked my watch. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. I imagined the appetizers rolling in, the clinking of glasses, the light laughter as they toasted themselves. At the 20-minute mark, my phone buzzed. "Dad, $1,900? What did you order?" I didn't answer. Not right away, anyway. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't scrambling to fix their mess. I wasn't the backup plan. I wasn't the family doormat. I just sat there, letting the sound of a very expensive dinner crash down on them without lifting a single finger. I stared at my phone screen, watching the angry text pile in one after another. First, it was Dad. He texted, "Seriously? This isn't funny. Fix it now. You made the reservation. You better make this right." Then came one from Emma. "What is wrong with you? You embarrassed us in front of everyone." And Scott, true to form, just sent a thumbs up emoji with classic Ryan. Always gotta be the victim. I should have been angry. I should have been pacing around the block, maybe even second-guessing myself like I always used to. But instead, I leaned back, let the cool night air settle on my face, and just breathed. Calm, measured, free. The thing is that dinner wasn't the beginning of their cruelty. It was just the first time they did it in public. Growing up, I was the easy one. Emma was the golden child, charming, social, always praised for being so put together. Scott was the classic firstborn, got a full ride to college, and no matter how many jobs he quit or how condescending he was, Mom and Dad still looked at him like he hung the moon. Me? I was the one who should have tried harder, who should have majored in something more useful, who shouldn't make people uncomfortable with my tone. When I landed my job in marketing, they said it sounded kind of soft. When I bought my first car, they joked that it was nice for a starter vehicle. I paid off my student loans in full before either of them, and they still looked at me like I was borrowing air. And yet, I stayed close. I went home every Thanksgiving. I sent birthday gifts, even when they forgot mine. I paid for things I had no business paying for. Why? Because some part of me still believed if I just kept showing up, they'd eventually see me as family. Not just a family member, but theirs. But that night, in that overpriced restaurant, I realized I wasn't just on the outside looking in. I was the glass they were pressing their faces against while laughing. I was the joke, the safety net, the guy who always came through, no matter how little they gave back. So I didn't go back in. I let them eat. And as I sat on that bench, basking in the beautiful disaster I'd quietly set in motion, I decided I was done playing that role. The next morning, I woke up to 7 missed calls. 4 from Dad, 2 from Emma, and 1 from my mom. That one shocked me. She rarely called. I listened to the voicemail, half expecting something dramatic. "Ryan, call me back when you get this." That was, "Look, I know that dinner wasn't ideal, but you didn't have to make a scene. Your father's very upset. We all are. And the restaurant says you were the one who made the reservation. They're saying the charges are final. I don't know why you would do something like this. We were trying to give you space. Anyway, please call me." Trying to give me space. That line actually made me laugh. I didn't call her back. Instead, I spent the day making another kind of reservation at my bank, at my credit card portal, and with every auto payment I'd ever foolishly linked to any of them. Emma's car insurance? Canceled. Scott's Netflix and gym membership I'd been covering without him realizing? Gone. The family phone plan I was still technically the administrator for? Locked and removed my card. And the big one, my parents' home internet, security system, and supplemental health coverage all tied to my account because their credit wasn't strong enough when they signed up years ago. All paused. Not deleted, not sabotaged. Just removed the funding. By that evening, I had a spreadsheet. Nothing dramatic, just a list. A clear breakdown of what I had been paying for. What I had quietly carried. I didn't send it to them. Not yet. I waited. And it didn't take long. The next morning, Dad texted me in all caps. "Why is the internet down? Did you do something to the account?" 5 minutes later, Mom chimed in. She texted, "Ryan, your father's having a meltdown over the Wi-Fi and the cameras. Please fix whatever you did." Then Emma, "Did you cancel my insurance? My card's not working. I got stopped by a cop this morning. I had to show him screenshots." And finally, Scott, who never texts unless it's a demand. He texted, "You messed up the Netflix and the gym? Are you 12? That one I replied to. "I thought you didn't want the soft guy in your life making decisions for you. Just honoring your wishes." The silence after that? Music. By the end of the week, my dad tried calling. 8 times. The last voicemail was surprisingly quiet. "Son, okay. Look, let's just talk. We're not saying you don't have the right to feel upset. But this isn't how family handles problems." It took everything in me not to laugh. Because all I could think was, exactly. I had handled it their way for years by swallowing it. By letting the resentment simmer under the surface. By staying quiet while they made digs and jokes and decisions that excluded me. And now that I wasn't doing that anymore, suddenly it was a problem. But I wasn't angry. I was done. That Sunday, I drove past the old family house. Not to go in. Not to knock. just to remind myself I didn't belong there anymore. I saw the porch light flickering, something I used to fix every few months when Dad couldn't get the ladder out. The front yard was overgrown, probably waiting for me to show up and mow it. I didn't stop. I just kept driving. Because the best part of all this? They hadn't even realized what else I'd quietly been planning behind the scenes. And when that hits them, well, let's just say that $1,900 dinner might start to feel like a generous discount. 3 days after the dinner fiasco, I got a knock on my apartment door. I wasn't expecting anyone, definitely not at 8:47 on a Wednesday morning when I was still nursing a coffee and debating whether to log into work or just stare at spreadsheets in a state of mild existential dread. I peeked through the peephole, half expecting it to be a neighbor needing help with a package or maybe one of those energy plan sales reps. But no, it was my mom, dressed in business casual, like she'd just come from a PTA meeting, holding a tote bag that said, "Live, laugh, love," and wearing an expression that tried to balance concern with condescension. That tight-lipped look I knew too well, the "I'm only here because I have to be civil" face. I opened the door slowly, bracing myself. "Hi," she said, like we hadn't spoken through a voicemail laced with thinly veiled guilt just days before. "Hi," I replied, flat. She glanced past me into the apartment like she was checking for signs of squalor, or maybe hoping to spot some framed reminder of how much better off I was with them. I didn't invite her in. I thought we could talk. In person. I didn't move from the doorway. About. She blinked, apparently not expecting the lack of warm welcome. About. This whole situation. The dinner. The payments. Your father's been really upset. I nodded. Yeah, that sounds rough. Her mouth twitched. Ryan, don't be like this. You know your father doesn't express things well. He was just trying to make the evening special. By seating me next to the kitchen with a takeout menu? I tilted my head. That was your idea of special? Silence. She adjusted the strap on her shoulder. You've always been sensitive. There it was. The word. Like it was a flaw I hadn't outgrown. As if expecting basic respect made me the emotional one. You know, I said slowly, being sensitive is a lot easier when you're constantly being told you don't belong. She took a deep breath, like she was preparing for a TED Talk. I think what we're struggling with is your need to be the center of attention. You always take things personally. It was just dinner, Ryan. One dinner. That I paid for. That I organized. That I wasn't even invited to properly. That's not fair, she snapped before immediately softening. Look, can't we just move on? Undo whatever you did with the accounts? Fix the mess. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. You want me to fix the mess? She blinked again. You know what I mean. I do. You mean you want me to go back to covering everything while being treated like an afterthought? That's not what anyone wants. You just made everything so dramatic. I let out a short laugh, not because it was funny, but because it was so predictably tone-deaf I almost admired the consistency. Then I pulled out my phone and opened my receipts folder. Literally. Screenshots. Spreadsheets. Transactions with annotations. I didn't shove it in her face, just held it casually where she could see the sheer volume. I tracked everything. Every dime I've covered in the last 3 years. Emma's insurance. Scott's phone. Your security system. Groceries. Streaming services. Pet insurance for a dog I've never even met. $21,389. Her face paled. You're exaggerating. I can print the reports. She didn't say anything. So let me ask you this, Mom. When you and Dad laughed about putting me at the casual table, when Emma said I wouldn't want to be part of the real dinner, was that part of the plan too? Or just a bonus joke at my expense? Her eyes dropped. I think we've all said things we didn't mean. But you meant to exclude me. She didn't answer that. We stood in silence for a while. Finally, she said, your father wants you to come to dinner on Sunday. A proper one. We'll make your favorite. Lasagna. I asked flatly. She smiled, weakly. Yes. I let the silence linger before answering. I'll think about it. She looked relieved, like that meant I was softening. But I wasn't. Because what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd already contacted the estate lawyer. The family home? The one my name is partially on because I co-signed during the refinance 5 years ago to help them get a lower interest rate? I'd formally initiated the process to relinquish my liability and ownership claim. Which sounds generous until you realize that without my credit, the bank reevaluates the loan. And given their current financial state, they're either going to have to sell or take on a massively higher monthly payment. And the best part? They have no idea it's coming. Yet. But they will. Because when that letter arrives from the bank, when they realize they're not just losing the financial padding, but the structural support beneath everything, they're going to feel it. And for once, I won't be there to pick up the pieces, but I'll watch. Quietly. Just like they used to watch me eat alone. I didn't go to dinner that Sunday. Instead, I spent the evening making lasagna in my own kitchen, with my favorite music playing, no passive-aggressive comments, and no sudden guilt trips. Just me, a glass of wine, and the comforting realization that I had finally stepped out of the box they'd spent years building around me. The next morning, I received a call from the family's longtime estate attorney, Mr. Callahan, a quiet, professional man in his late 60s who always reminded me of a librarian that had accidentally gotten a law degree. I'd spoken to him 3 times over the past 2 months, arranging everything behind the scenes. The mortgage, the ownership shares, and more importantly, my removal. He was calling to confirm that the formal notice had been delivered that morning. Your parents were both home when the courier dropped it off, he said gently. I expect you'll be hearing from them soon. He wasn't wrong. At 9:17 a.m., the calls began. First, Dad. What is this letter? You're pulling out of the refinance? Are you insane? Do you have any idea what this does to our mortgage? Then a follow-up. Dad, Callahan says we either refinance without your credit or sell. You know damn well we can't get the same rate again. You're going to bankrupt your own family. I didn't reply. At 9:40 a.m., my mom called. Voicemail, Ryan, honey, I don't understand what's going on. This can't be right. We talked about dinner. You said you'd think about it. Why would you blindside us like this? By 10 a.m., Scott joined in. You're seriously pulling this now? Over dinner? You drama queen. Grow up and fix it. Then Emma. Okay, you made your point. Enough already. You've humiliated us. We're all suffering, if that makes you feel better. Congrats. Hope you're happy. I didn't respond to them either, because I didn't do any of this to get attention or revenge for revenge's sake. I did it because I had finally come to terms with the fact that they would never see me as an equal, never treat me with respect, never give me a seat at the table unless I built the table, paid for the chairs, and served the food myself. And even then, they'd still hand me a takeout menu. Later that afternoon, I got a knock on my apartment door again. This time, it was Dad. He didn't wait to be invited in. He just barged past me like he owned the place, nostrils flaring. We need to talk. I stayed near the door. We are. He paced like a caged animal. You blindsided us. You blindsided me. After everything I've done for you. I actually laughed. Like what? Mocking me at dinner? Letting Emma and Scott treat me like an afterthought while I paid for half their lives. His jaw clenched. You always play the victim. No, I said calmly. I just finally stopped volunteering for the role. He pointed a finger at me. We're your family. You don't just walk away from family when things get hard. That's rich, I said, folding my arms. You walked away from me emotionally a long time ago. I just finally stopped chasing you. He went quiet then, like the weight of those words hit him in the chest. Look, he said after a long pause, trying a different tone, we're in a bad spot. If this goes through, we'll lose the house. You know that. I do. So you're just going to let that happen? I looked him dead in the eye. I'm not letting anything happen. I'm stepping back. The consequences are just the natural result of what you all built. You're punishing everyone because you didn't like your seat at dinner. I shook my head slowly. No, I'm walking away because after years of giving and giving, you made it clear I'd never be more than convenient. Not loved. Not respected. Just useful. You didn't even see me. He looked away, jaw tightening. Then he muttered, we didn't think you'd care. And there it was. The truth. I didn't say anything after that. I didn't need to. He stood there a moment longer, like he wanted to fight, like he was waiting for me to break, to fold, to do what I always did, apologize, smooth things over, make it easier for them. But I didn't. Eventually, he turned and left without another word. A week passed. The house went up for sale. A real estate sign appeared in their perfectly manicured yard, one I used to mow for free every summer when I still thought that meant something. They tried to make it look voluntary, told relatives they were downsizing, but everyone in the family chat knew. Word spreads fast when 3 adult children are suddenly looking for backup loans and couch space. Emma posted some cryptic Instagram story about betrayal by those closest to you, followed by a picture of her car with a parking boot because she hadn't renewed her insurance yet. Scott started a GoFundMe with a sob story about financial hardship. It raised $80 from 2 coworkers and his high school gym teacher. Mom emailed me once. Just a link to an old photo album, one of us from a beach trip years ago. I didn't open it. Because here's the thing. I didn't need memories to remind me what I'd lost. I needed to protect the peace I had finally earned. 3 months later, the house sold. They moved into a smaller rental on the edge of town. Emma had to pick up extra shifts. Scott got his gym membership canceled and started jogging in public parks, which he whined about daily online. Mom and Dad stopped calling. And me? I went to Italy. It wasn't planned, just a sudden burst of spontaneity. I'd saved for it over the years, always telling myself it wasn't the right time. But when I saw the sold listing for the house pop up on Zillow, I booked the ticket the same night. I sat in Florence, watching the sun bleed gold over the Arno River, sipping espresso, and breathing, really breathing, for the first time in my adult life. No debt tied to other people. No emotional chain around my ankle. Just freedom. Pure, earned freedom. One night, as I watched the city lights flicker on, I got a message from a number I hadn't saved but recognized instantly. Mom texted, "I hope you're okay. We're all struggling. Dad hasn't been the same. We miss you." I stared at it for a long time. Then I wrote one word, "Goodbye." I blocked the number. Not out of hate. Not even out of spite. But because I knew if I left the door open, even an inch, they'd wedge themselves back in. With guilt. With shame. With half apologies and full expectations. And I was done with that. They taught me what family shouldn't look like. And I learned, finally, how to build one of my own, brick by brick, boundary by boundary. One that doesn't ask me to sit by the kitchen doors while they toast each other over appetizers I paid for. One that starts with me and ends with peace.